Guys, welcome to the channel. Sorry, this is really weird because I've already just done an intro and for some reason my camera literally pressed stop, and which you have to move the cursor on the laptop, and then came on again, pressed off again, so something was pressing my stop and play. So I've just said a quick prayer and we're back to it. That was odd, but I was saying in my last one we are going to get back to the return of the gods. And if you would like to watch any other of the readings in the chapters from this book, because we're about 4 away from the end now, and they're really small chapters, so hopefully I might get 2 out in this video, then they're all in playlists, guys. All the books that I read, they're all in their own playlist, so you can start from chapter 1 and follow along. And thank you so much to all the subscribers and people that take the time to comment. Honestly, it really does mean the world to me. And I thank the Lord for each and every single one of you precious souls. It really does mean so much. I can't believe that anyone would take the time to listen to me. And I'm always humbled by the fact that I'm not so high-minded to think people are following me. They are not following me. I wouldn't want anybody to follow me. I am nobody. They are following the Lord, and the Lord's brought them here. And that is what touches me so much, because when the Lord does a work, it's so much better than anything that I could ever do. So thank you so much. It really does mean the world. I've started this channel to share my experiences and my walk with the Lord in hope that it would help other people maybe avoid the pitfalls and stuff that I went down. And trust me, you don't want to go down those dark holes, or those that have just come out of New Age and all of that nonsense, and are walking with the Lord. I apologise for the lighting. It's really sunny and hot today, and the sun keeps going in and out, so it's messing with the lighting a bit. I have got the light on in here though, but apologies guys. I'm doing my best. I've also forgotten my microphone, so I'm hoping the sound quality is okay. I have not been here for a while because I've been really quite unwell, to the point where I've been out in my bed just in so much pain. I will do a separate video about my health update because not everybody cares, and that's fine. Nobody wants to sit and hear somebody moaning about their health, so that's fine. So if you see my eye twitching, I am not some kind of freak. I've got an issue with my eye. I'll explain that in another video. So let's get to it, guys. Thank you so much for all your comments, your words of encouragement, and your likes and subscribes. It means the world to me. If you are watching these videos and you wish to subscribe, I would absolutely love to have you here. I started this channel for genuine reasons, and it's just such a blessing to me, and I just want to pay that blessing forward to you guys. So here we go. We are going to do the Return of the Gods. The next chapter is called Every Knee Shall Bow. And like I said, I might get 2 chapters in this video. So let's get into it, guys. The gods had come back not only to exact vengeance, but for dominion. They had returned to reign. In ancient times, they had reigned over the cultures in which they were enshrined. But when those cultures turned to God, they were forced to abdicate, to leave their thrones and to go into exile. Having returned, they would lift their scepters and aspire to mastery and dominion. Kingship of the gods. Baal, the first of the Dark Trinity, was known as the King of the gods and the Lord of the earth. The name Baal, or Lord, these are all in air quotes, guys, owner and master, was not only his title but a description of his nature. He would seek to master, to own, and to lord in his mythologies. He battled other Canaanite gods to gain or regain lordship and authority. The ancient Baal epic reveals his ambition. Mighty Baal desired the kingship of the gods, and he would have it. He would become the undisputed lord of the Canaanite deities. The same spirit would war against the God of Israel. Now, when I say Lord in relation to anyone but our Lord, it is a small L, not capital. The days of Baal. It was through a spirit of tolerance and openness that Baal gained entrance into the culture of ancient Israel. But once this worship and cult became widespread and established, Once it touched the highest levels of authority, everything changed. The tolerance of earlier days came to an end. It had served its function as a doorway through which Baal could enter. Baal now reigned as the nation's god, and there would be no room for the nation's former god. He would seek to achieve total domination. Everyone would now be required to call him Baal or Lord. Anyone and anything that now stood in his way was to be eliminated. He would war against God and his people and anyone who still upheld the former ways. He would use all means at his disposal: the power of culture, the power of state, and the power of his cult. Those who held to and upheld the ways of God would now be branded as troublemakers, agitators, and enemies of the state. Thus came the days when the righteous were persecuted and the prophets were hunted down, the days of Baal. The opening and closing. It goes back to the ancient parable. The spirits seek to return to the house. When one is trying to get into a house, it seeks openness. Sorry guys, the fan on my laptop. I'm hoping you guys can't hear that. I will get my microphone for the next video. Apologies. When one is trying to get into a house, one seeks openness. One pushes to open its door. So when the gods were seeking to get into the American house and that of the Western civilization, the focus was on openness and tolerance. It was never really about either. Openness and tolerance were only the means of opening the door and to gain entrance. They were the way to cause a nation and a civilization to abandon the values they had cherished for what was new and foreign. It was for that reason that the entrance of the gods was most dramatically seen in the 1960s, when openness and tolerance were sacred mantras. But once one gets through the door and inside the house, one no longer seeks openness. If one's aim is to stay in the house, then one now seeks to close the door. So once the gods came into America and became established, once people started accepting their ways and authorities, the ideal of openness would now work against them. They had to consolidate their power. They had to close the door. So there was a change in atmosphere. A chill came over free speech. The doors began to close. Any dissent from the new morality could now be met with punishment. One was free to endorse the new ways of the gods, but one was not free to challenge them. Most people had no idea why it was happening or how it could change so dramatically, but it was a logical conclusion to the entrance of the gods. Baals of the universe. So, as it was in the days of Baal in ancient Israel, it was in America. The earlier tolerance would now be replaced by a new enlightened intolerance. It would manifest as political correctness, then wokeness and cancel culture. Every word that could now be interpreted as expressing dissent from the newly sanctioned view was subject to judgment and censor. Anything that could be interpreted as challenging or differing from the new morality had to be cancelled. In ancient Israel, Baal could now use kings and queens, an Ahab and a Jezebel, as his vessels to stamp out dissent and cancel the opposition. But now, in addition to the powers of state, Baal could now employ technology, social media, and internet to stamp out dissent and cancel the opposition. And with more and more communication taking place online, Baal and his fellow gods can control human speech, behaviour, and thought in a way that was never before possible. It was no accident that in the last days before the destruction of Jerusalem, the prophet Jeremiah was thrown into prison. The gods had taken over the culture and through the nation's leaders had sought to silence the prophets and all opposition. The tolerance for new gods had now morphed into a culture of oppression, a cancel culture. In the modern case, the leaders of Silicon Valley were more than willing to comply with new directives of Baal, that which challenged the authority of the new gods would, at their hands, be cancelled. Baal had been heralded as the Lord of the earth. The leaders of big tech had been labelled the masters of the universe. In biblical Hebrew, the word master is Baal, so the title could be rendered the Baals of the universe. Ishtar unleashed. But Baal was not the only god seeking dominion, as the name Baal means Lord, and name Molech means king. Molech could seek his own kingdom. He could use the abortion industry and an extreme and radically woke as his instrument. Then there was Ishtar. She too sought dominion. She craved it, even if it meant taking over the dominions of other gods. She took the powers of civilization away from her father. She attempted to take control of Underworld from her sister, and she was believed to have taken over Eanna temple from the sky god, An or An. Ishtar would accept nothing less than the total submission of her subjects. If they refused, she would respond with fury. In one of her myths, she rages against a mountain that failed to show her reverence. As I, the goddess, approached the mountain, it showed me no respect. Since they showed me no respect, since they did not put their noses to the ground for me, since they did not rub their lips in the dust for me, I shall personally fill the soaring mountain range with my terror. Since Ishtar was the goddess of war, her response to any perceived lack of homage or submission could be especially calamitous and deadly. She would seek to destroy any who did not reverence her. Her return to the modern world came, as it did for the other gods, through the doorway of tolerance, and upon gaining power, her focus would turn to dominion. Anyone who refused to pay her homage, anyone refusing to go along with her altering of sexuality, marriage, and gender, would suffer the unleashing of her fury. She would vilify them, portray them as haters, incite the culture against them, and seek to deprive them of their livelihood, their speech, and their freedom. The totalitarian gods. It was a strange transformation. Cultures that had so long espoused the virtues of freedom and tolerance would suddenly begin espousing the virtues of intolerance. Nations that had long venerated free speech as a sacred pillar of their democracy now venerated its suppression. But it was all part of the mystery ushered in by the returning gods. The open culture that welcomed them in began closing up. In place of tolerance and freedom of speech came ideological conformity and the crushing of speech and thought. They were signs. The gods were consolidating their hold on America and Western culture. One now had to watch every word that came out of one's mouth, every comment one posted online, everyone's own thoughts. If one spoke or wrote in a way that violated new dogmas of the gods, they were to be punished or were forced to publicly confess their sins. It was a new totalitarianism, birthed of the gods' new dominion. The theory of the new order would fall on those who resisted it. It would fall, first of all, on those who upheld the ways of God, the Christians, those who followed God's word. Conservatives would also be targeted. The reason was simple. Conservatives sought to conserve, the gods sought to overturn. But even liberals who were not radical enough now found themselves under siege by the more radical new God. Liberal professors now found themselves attacked by their students for upholding free speech and in danger of losing their jobs. Old school feminists now came under fire for upholding the existence of women against the campaign to abolish them. But they had all been used of the gods, and now the agenda was moving to another stage and passing them by. They could be disposed of. The revolution the gods had inaugurated was devouring its own children. Every knee shall bow. Amen, yes it shall. And though it was now dressed in modern clothing, the phenomenon was old as Baal. When he had gained dominion in Israel, every knee was to bow before him. Those who refused to bow were risking death. So too in Babylon. The Jewish peers of the prophet Daniel were commanded to bow down to a golden idol. They would not, and so would be sentenced to execution. In Rome, the Christians were compelled to worship the gods of Rome. Those who refused did so at risk of imprisonment and execution. In each case, the persecution was connected to the gods and to the act of bowing down. It had always been their nature to force every knee to bow down to their presence. It was this that lay behind new totalitarianism. In their newfound dominion, the gods moved upon government, corporate organisations to force their employees to attend indoctrination sessions into the ways of wokeness and new codes of ethics, expelled students from schools and universities for affirming the existence of male and female, forced parents to transition their children, brought lawsuits against shopkeepers for refusing to violate their faith, and compelled others to give homage to the sign of the rainbow. Many are mystified by the transformation overtaking their culture, by the phenomenon, but the phenomenon was ancient. The gods were doing as they had done in ancient times. They would not rest until every knee had bowed before them and every tongue confessed that they were the new and undisputed lords. You will find that these gods, everything, they always imitate the Lord. Dominion. The gods had promised that in exchange for abandoning God, they would usher in a culture of freedom, but instead they had ushered in a culture in which every knee, word and thought was forced to bow down in their veneration. Nations whose core identities were based on freedom and opposition to totalitarianism now discarded the first and freely adopted the latter. Having turned away from God, they found themselves compelled to kneel before their new masters. The spirits now inhabited government chambers, corporate boardrooms, college campuses, courtrooms, television, movie and computer screens, music, popular culture, youth culture, children's culture, and virtually every corner of American and Western society. The new totalitarianism was a sign that gods had achieved their dominion. They had successfully transformed a Christian civilization into a pagan one. And as for those who defied their dominion and would not bow their knee, the gods would pass the same judgment as them on those who resisted them in ancient times. There would be no room for them in the dominion of the gods. What is the end of the mystery? To where does it all lead? The answer was there from the beginning, in the valleys, in the groves, in their temples, and on the high places. The answer lay on the altars. I will go ahead and do the other chapter in another video just to keep them short, because not everybody wants to listen to a half an hour, 45-minute video. But in regards to that, now everybody knows, if you're on here, I live in the UK, in England, and it's one of those things where they say we have freedom of speech, but we don't quite have freedom of speech, because freedom of speech is to say what you want. Yes, it may cause offence to other people, but we don't all think the same. And this is the thing, they want everybody to think the same. They want us all like little lemmings treading the path. But how many of us now, if it happened to be like in Roman times, where if you do not bow, if you do not worship this image, you know, this thing made out of gold, or this idol, then you will be killed. How many people would bow to that pressure and worship in this day and age? Because I think in this day and age, some Christians are weak. Like, would you lay down your life? Would you rather die than worship and, you know, leave your God, the one true living God? Like, how many people would do that? And I've read the Fox's Books of Martyrs, guys, and what people have actually been through during these processes of like martyrdom, and I'm trying to think of the other word, but this is my health thing doing my head in. I struggle to find the word that I want. But how many people would still go through that same kind of thing? Or how many people would quit back down just to save their life? You know? We're just passing through this world, guys. And it's funny when we're talking about bowing down, because I think I've mentioned it on here before. I had a dream, and I've actually written in my diary, and I know what date, but it's upstairs in my journal. And it was a dream where everyone gathered in this square, and there was like, oh, the Lord is coming, the Lord is coming. So everybody gathers in this square, and everyone's waiting with this anticipation and joy and hope that the Lord's coming and he's going to walk through the streets. So I too was in my dream, and I gathered in that place, and we were sat there waiting. And then somebody said, the Lord is coming. So everybody bowed, including me. And then as I looked up from my bow, I seen that it was not the Lord. It was the Pope, funnily enough. So I was like, that's not my Lord. I'm not bowing. So I stood up. And obviously, because I went against the grain, because I went against what everybody was expected to bow to this person that was supposed to be the Lord, but clearly it was not the Lord, and I recognised that, so I stood up. Their guards or whoever was there, like watching over the people, you know, keeping control of the masses, was chasing me. And we was running and running, and it was me and my little family, my children and husband, and we was running. And I can remember the Lord told us to go into this house, and underneath it was like underneath the floor almost. And we hid under there. And we could see the people running across the boards, like trying to find us, but they couldn't find us because the Lord had hid us. And I can remember that dream, and I still remember it. And this dream was years ago, not long after I got saved. And that dream always stays with me. And because I just think it's like the Lord is saying to me, like, you know, do not worry and do not fear. Do not bow down to anyone other than me, and I will protect you, you know? So, yeah, you've got to be willing to lose your life. And I'm not talking about where people go out and blow themselves up and do all that stupidness. That's just ridiculous. But I'm talking about where your heart lies and how you put into practice your faith. Because faith is not in the comfortable times, guys. Your faith is in those difficult times where you don't feel like you can carry on, but where you are being tested to your limit. That is where your faith is. You know, yeah, you have your everyday faith, but when those trials come and then tribulations and temptations, that is a true test of your faith and where your heart lies. And I just think in this day and age and with the way the world's going, we really have to ask ourselves the question of, if everything was taken away from us, like Job, if everything was taken away from us, would we still trust the Lord? Would we still trust the Lord in that moment to say, Lord, I know that this right now looks absolutely catastrophic, Lord. And there seems like there's no hope, Lord, because there's nothing. But Lord, in this moment, I trust you. I know you, Lord, and I know what you have done for me. Therefore, I know what you are willing and can do for me, Lord, if I am living in your will and your purpose for my life. And I think that's the kind of faith that we need to really get down to, because the faith of people today, of some Christians, is so weak. They're fine to praise the Lord in these massive churches, you know, with like that appeal to their senses, you know. Any church that appeals to anything other than your spirit is bad. You know, if it doesn't convict you, if what your pastor says to you doesn't hit in your heart and convict you and make you feel a way, make you feel like you're not doing a good enough job. Because I would rather come away from church with feeling like I am not doing good enough, I can do better, than I am perfect, I'm doing fine, I'm doing... No. So, anyway, that was a rant. But it needs saying, the times we're living in, the trials and temptations, guys, they're only going to get worse. Until we are called up and the Lord calls us up, there is going to be tough times, hard times. And where are we going to stand in those hard times? It has to be with the Lord, forsaking everything. So, thank you guys for coming back and watching. I truly appreciate you all. Let me click this off my screen because it's blocking my button. Yeah, so thank you guys for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Let me know what you think, guys, in the comments as well, so we can have some kind of like, you know, conversation. I'd love to hear from you. So thank you so much for watching, guys, and I will see you all soon.